Hi everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. The kids have done their schoolwork and their chores and are inside doing free time. Some are on the PlayStation, some are watching series of unfortunate events on the television. I think someone is reading. There was a pom-pom making going on as well, I'm not sure, but Darryl is out of the house at the moment, so the kids are all inside taking advantage because there's lots of bugs and it's very humid out here at the moment. So I made myself a coffee and I decided to come out and try and have a chat about the monthly grocery haul, which is what everyone has been asking about how we manage to do it and how I manage to plan it. And then I have been showing lots of videos of how I use the food, but a lot of the theory behind what I buy and how I use it has been asked about. So I'm going to try and put that together. So I do have a planner that I use to do some of my lists and spreadsheeting and stuff before I go, but I didn't want to share just the lists and spreadsheets because it just isn't quite that relevant on its own. The process of going shopping is all part and parcel of managing to plan that monthly shop, because it really depends on what's available and what's in stock and what is well priced and what is too expensive each month. So the plan that I make before I go is malleable. It is definitely something that changes depending on which shops I get to and things like that. So I do all the normal things, and Woolworths and Coles each week have half price specials, so I always go online and check their catalogues each month and make sure that there's nothing that we would normally buy that's on half price. If there is, then I might grab a few of them because it's half price. I don't buy things that are half price just because they're half price. It has to be something that we would normally purchase. I have been could have done that in the past when we had more money and more cash flow and we were shopping more regularly, bought things because they were half price, not because we needed them. So I have managed to break that habit, and I don't buy things just because they're on special. I buy things because they are on special, but I would have bought them anyway. That is one of the key things. Because I only go monthly, I only get to check 1 week of the month's worth of half price specials, so it doesn't always line up, and it's unfortunate because sometimes there's stuff that we would use that is half price, but I'm not shopping that month, so it's irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. So I actually have stopped checking the half price specials anytime except my monthly shopping trip, because otherwise it's just frustrating to see something half price and know that I can't get there to get it, and I'm not going to make a special trip because that's going to cost me in fuel and time and not make it a worthwhile expense either. So I always check the catalogues. I check the Costco specials as well, but they show up in store regardless. And Aldi doesn't really have specials, they only have special buys. And I just browse them when I'm in the Aldi store. They regularly have school products that I'll buy. This month I bought some Play-Doh. There was tubs with 900 gram tubs of Play-Doh for $5, I think it was. Now I do make Play-Doh, but it's just another task that I don't always get to, and the kids love Play-Doh. So I used to use my Thermomix to make it, which was really simple, but because I can't use the cook function on my Thermomix anymore, I have to make it by hand, and it just takes a little bit longer, a little bit more planning. I should do it more often, and I don't. So when I saw these tubs for $5, I thought I'd grab a couple of tubs, and the kids can use them they'll last them a week or two before it'll all be too ruined for them to do anything with. But they know that they have to look after it to be able to use it, so that's their choice. So I check the special buys. Corridor, sometimes there's some gardening stuff, sometimes there's some school stuff, sometimes there's treats of things that are branded that are cheaper in the special buys than they normally would be. I have a quick look, but again, I make a point of not buying anything that I wouldn't normally buy, though I do buy school supplies because obviously the kids need school supplies. So that's one of the ways that I alter my purchases based on availability, is by what's on special, what is available that isn't always available, and things like that first up. The other thing is that I do an inventory of my pantry. So I do have an inventory list that I print out and I mark down, and I will use to assess what I've got on hand. So let me bring you down to this and we can have a look at it. Okay, so this is where one of my, the new mic that I'm going to be buying is going to come in handy, so hopefully the sound is okay on this. So I have an inventory list of the items that I have on my shelf, and these are items that I always have, and I have a list of what's on the shelf the base quantity of what I like to have available, and this isn't including an open one, so this is what's on the shelf only, and then the number in this column is what I would need to buy to bring it back to base quantity. Now this is still only a guideline because it depends on the price of things. So for example, I didn't buy arborio rice this month. I meant to, and I didn't because I didn't see any at a decent price. Costco didn't have any that I could find, and I forgot to check at Woolworths, and Aldi didn't have any, so I didn't end up buying it. So this was this is what I'd like to do, but it doesn't necessarily happen. The other thing being things like what have we got here? Vinegar. I only ended up buying one bottle of vinegar because I was watching the costs of things. I didn't get apple cider vinegar because there wasn't any at Costco, and I don't like to buy it from Aldi at that price, so I will buy that, a 5-litre one of that on Amazon, but so I didn't end up buying it with this shopping trip. The other things were like oats. I put down, we have about 10. I can fit about 20 in that crate, so I was going to get 10 more, except that I was going to get them at Costco, and the oats at Costco had increased in price quite significantly, and I wasn't willing to pay that for them, so I ended up just bypassing it. And because I keep such a high base quantity available, it means that if I didn't get any this month, I should still be able to get through to the next month regardless. I just need to bump up my stockpile next month. Something else, what else did I look at that I didn't end up getting? So for example, passata. It didn't have any passata at Aldi, and the passata at Costco, they only had the Mutti brand one, which is quite expensive, and I wasn't going to pay that. But again, because I have enough on my shelf, I can get by without buying any more. It's just that I like to have that amount on the shelf. So I do this running list. This gives me a good idea. I take a photo of this with my phone before I go into the shop so that I have it in front of me as well, because I don't carry this into the shops with me. And I use this as a guide, but I don't stick to it if it's going to cost me money. I don't buy something that's on my list if I don't really need it, if the price isn't relevant to it. So if something's more expensive, I'm not going to buy it knowing that that I could get through to the next month and buy it at a better price potentially, or it becomes something that we don't buy anymore. So we've done that a lot with things. We've gone from buying items that we used to buy all the time, it's gotten too expensive, and so we've gone to not buying them again. So I do have a master list of, this is pretty much everything that we stock now. So this is my inventory list of my entire pantry. These are the things that I buy each month and have on my shelf available at all times. Some of these things I have to buy each month no matter what. So like toilet paper, I buy a container of toilet paper every month no matter what is left behind, because if I can't get it one month, then we'll have backup for the following months. I buy most of our meat I buy every month no matter what, because it will add to our monthly availability, but then it will carry forward to the next month. It can be canned, or it can be put in my freezer, or whatever else. Other things that are on that inventory are items that I double check to see how many I've got, because I may or may not need them depending on what I've done for that month. So I have this master list here of everything on my shelf pretty much, and then I haven't got one at the moment, but I quite often break it down to where I prefer to get it from, or I double check pricings. I do have Excel spreadsheets that have dollar per 100 grams on nearly all of these items from all different places. So like I've got say rice in a dollar per 100 grams at Aldi, in a dollar per 100 grams at Coles, Woolworths, and at Costco, so that I know where is the best place to purchase it from. Milk powder is another thing. I have dollar per 100 on that for things. Rice cakes and rice crackers, generally speaking, are cheaper at Aldi, but sometimes they have specials where they're half price, and so I'll get them from there. So I know pretty much where I buy each of these items as well to get the best price for them, whether it's in Costco or in Aldi or in Coles or Woolworths each month. And then I have some bulk stuff as well. So I have my spices, and I generally buy small containers if I need to from local stores, but I like to buy them by the kilo. I like to buy all my spices by the kilo. My baking powders, my bicarbs, everything else I tend to buy by the kilo. My nuts I tend to buy bulk. I was just answering a question this morning. Someone was asking me where I like to buy them. I like to buy my nuts mostly from Nuts About Life, Pure Wellness, Amazon, or Honest to Goodness. They all have fairly good pricing, a variety of pricing on shipping, but I just add my shipping to the dollar cost per kilo. So if it's going to cost me, so cashews at the moment I can get for about $50 for 5 kilos worth. They're just broken pieces of them. And then say it's going to cost me $20 for shipping for 5 kilos of each of these, then I put that extra $2 per kilo onto the price of them and work out if it's still a good equivalent pricing or if I should look elsewhere. Okay, so once I work out what I've got on the shelves and what I need more of, then I go shopping with the knowledge of that, which is beneficial. So it is beneficial to write out a master list. It's beneficial to go through your inventory. There's some things I don't, as I said, there's some things I don't inventory anymore because I buy them regardless. So my budget for a month is $1,400, and this month I spent $1,338, but where there was a few things that I couldn't get, so Darryl's going to try and grab them for me otherwise, so it'll still be up at about the $1,400 mark. That $1,400 includes all our toiletries and stuff as well. Not that we buy a whole lot of them, but there's pull-ups for one of the boys and soap and some shampoo and conditioner. I am going to be making more of my own, as especially in winter. It'll be easier to get more done when there's less to be done in the garden. So hopefully I can get a little bit of a stockpile going before spring when I get busy in the garden again. So I will get plenty of bar soap done because that can just cure indefinitely. It just gets harder the longer it sits there and cures. And I'm going to make some liquid coconut oil soap and liquid Castile soap as well for various uses, whether it's dishes, washing, body soap, whatever. I will make that up as well. And then that will be one less thing that needs to be added onto my shopping each month. So there is certain things that I buy every month, no matter what, they get added to. So I do inventory my freezer, my chest freezer and my upright freezer regularly. I didn't need to this month because I knew what was in it, but I regularly empty the whole thing out, check how much has been stashed in the bottom of the freezer that you just forgot was there, and then I count that all up so that I don't overbuy. But most of what I use my freezer space these days is stuff that comes in the hamper, so stuff that's pre-cooked frozen stuff that we don't normally buy that needs to go in the freezer, frozen fruit like bananas and stuff that we use for smoothies, and frozen vegetables and pastry, things like that, that there is no other way to store them. So I do double check the fridge and freezer, the freezers, the chest freezer and the upright freezer every couple of months and make sure that nothing's been stashed down the bottom. But generally speaking, I know what's left in there and I don't have to write it down. But if you haven't hit that point of being that aware, I think I'm overly aware of what food we do and don't have because of the way we do the shopping and the isolation and all the children. So if you're not as aware of what's in your fridge and freezer, a good thing to do is have a laminated sheet with your inventory on it, and you can add and remove things as they come in and out of your freezer, and that gives you a good idea of that. I think one of the other most important aspects of being able to do monthly shopping is the ability to be aware of your portions. So, and how long you have from when you purchase it to when it needs to be dealt with as well. So like this month I bought 8 kilos of beef mince. Now beef mince needs to be used or frozen within 24-48 hours of purchase, generally speaking. It's a personal comfort level for that. Sometimes it's a couple of days before I get to it. We're okay with that. It's in the bottom of the fridge. It's fine. But the recommendation when you purchase minced meat, because of the large surface area that has the potential to create bacteria, is that you're supposed to use it within 24 hours. So that is one of the first things that require me to do something with. So this month I bought 8 kilos of beef mince, and we only have 3 servings of bolognese in the freezer. Bolognese is one of the things that I do freeze. I'm not overly fond of bolognese in a jar. The texture of the mince gets very soft, and I just don't prefer it. So we leave space in the freezer to freeze our bolognese, and I make it in bulk, and we freeze it in gallon Ziploc bags that can be washed and reused, and that way it's in serving sizes, perfect to pull out for a meal. So one of the most important things I think that you need to consider when you're trying to do monthly shopping, or you're trying to attempt to purchase any period of time, really, not even a month. If you're buying for a fortnight, one of the biggest budget killers is going to the shops in between when you're doing your big shops and purchasing more. It's so easy to grab half a dozen items and it end up being an extra $100 on your bill, and that's going to blow your budget out. So what you want to achieve is that you go to the shops once a month, once a week, once a fortnight, however often you go, and you buy everything you're going to need for that period of time. You don't want to get home, go to make something and go, ugh, I need this and I don't have it. So that's another aspect there, that I don't meal plan before I shop, because I find that makes you buy things that you don't necessarily want to. It makes you buy things that might be full price because you've got this plan in your head of what you were going to make for the month, and when during that month you were going to make it, and if you don't have this, you can't make it. And so I don't like to pigeonhole myself that much. So my meal plan is very fluid. I don't even write one down per se. I know what I have to use. So with that mince needs to be used within the first couple of days. So I know that within the first couple of days of being home, if we've got hamburger buns, we will have hamburgers, because I don't want to freeze the mince and then make hamburgers. I just want to make hamburgers. So if I've got hamburger buns, we will have hamburgers normally the first or second night that I'm back from the grocery shop. And I will generally make bolognese. I can freeze the mince before I make bolognese, but it's just going to add another step. It's going to add something that the mince has to be frozen in. It's going to add time to defrost it before I make the bolognese and all of that. And I want to reduce the workflow. So I want to use that 8 kilos of mince, if possible, in the first 48 hours without having to freeze it. That doesn't mean I don't freeze some. Sometimes things get away from me and I do end up freezing it. But the attempt is to use it all before doing that step, because we're bypassing that step. So I know I need to make bolognese. I will use probably a whole 4 kilos to make bolognese. I will do it in 2 big pots, and I'll use a whole lot of my jars of tomatoes, and I use pearl barley to bulk up it. Pearl barley, when you cook it in spaghetti, it tastes sort of like meat. It has the same sort of mouthfeel as a chunk of beef, and it is a hell of a lot cheaper than meat. Beef is $10 a kilo. Pearl barley is like, I want to say $2.40 a kilo, $2.40 a kilo. So, and it expands. So when you add it to your bolognese, I always add a whole lot of chicken stock to my bolognese, because the pearl barley sucks in a whole lot of liquid. So you're getting all that goodness from the chicken broth into your bolognese as well, and all that flavour, and it just extends the meals. So anyway, I went off on a ramble there. So 4 kilos of it probably goes to bolognese straight away, and then I have 4 kilos left. So if we do hamburgers, I probably use around about 2 kilos for hamburgers. That will be an excess of meat patties, but we just eat them the next day. And then the other 2 kilos, regularly I make meatballs, because meatballs freeze well if you make them in bulk, and I oven bake them. I don't stand at a fry pan cooking them off. I definitely oven bake them. So I make them in trays worth, and I bake them in the oven. They don't have to be fully cooked. They can just be par cooked, because when you defrost them, we generally serve them with gravy. So I will put them in a pan and brown up the edges and heat them through. Serve them with gravy, veg, mash, or with pasta sauce that I've got canned, or anything like that. They're a very versatile meal too. Sometimes I will break them up and use them on pieces as toppings. So I will get through that whole 8 kilos of beef within the first 48 hours without taking that extra step of putting it in the freezer. One of the ways I can do that, though, is by knowing my portion sizing. So come to portion sizing. That is another really important thing. Not for weight loss, not for health benefits or anything else, purely for knowing how much you need of everything and how far each one is going to stretch. So that's why I weigh everything. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but when I'm baking bread, when I'm cooking meatballs, when I'm doing anything like that, I weigh it. I weigh my meatballs out to 30 grams each. My hamburger patties are 90 grams each. My bolognese serves, I do it in 1.2 kilo bags, because that works well for 200 grams each for the children. And I do smaller bags for Della and I, because we don't always eat bolognese the same night that they do, because it's a nice simple meal that Surreal can make for everyone else if we are busy. So by doing the weighing of it and the portioning, I know that however many meatballs I shape out, I know approximately how many they will need frozen for a meal. So the kids, for example, the smaller boys normally have 4 each and the bigger kids have 5 each. So I know that I need 27 odd meatballs to for a meal, and I can freeze them in that size portion and know that by pulling that bag out, that's going to be enough for the kids. So I know how far the mince will stretch, I know how many meals it would make, and it's bagged up accordingly and frozen for those purposes, which is really important to make sure that you've got enough food to stretch and to be aware of how much food you need to stretch through that period of time. I do a bit the same with the chicken. So normally I buy chicken thighs and chicken breasts, and the thighs I marinate and I grill in bulk in the cast iron pan, and then we slice them up and we portion them accordingly and freeze them. We tend to do them in 300 gram or 600 gram lots depending what we're using for. If you are using them for wraps and things like that, then the kids have a 600 gram lot. They get 100 grams of chicken each to use in wraps or on sandwiches or whatever. If it's to be put through pasta or whatever, then 300 grams is sometimes a lot. It's sometimes enough. It really depends on the type of meal. Sometimes I pull out more than one bag worth and defrost it. It just really depends on that. But I do the same with chicken. So the chicken needs to be used within, say, 3 or 4 days of coming home. It depends on if it's from Costco, it's in a vacuum sealed pack and it has a date on it. So sometimes I've got a bit longer. This month I managed to get cheap chicken thighs. They're bone in, skin on, and they were frozen, and it was 9 2-kilo packs in each box for $49, and I got 2 boxes, so it works out about $2 something per kilo, which is really cheap for chicken. Because it was frozen, I shoved 1 whole box straight in the freezer so that I don't have to worry about it, and I stuck the other box in the fridge. I managed to find room to do that. So the box that's in the fridge will need to be worked through over the next few days. It'll take quite a while to defrost. They're in big lumps, so I've got maybe a week before you get to the point of it all being defrosted and needing to be used. Chicken's pretty easy to tell if it's gone off. You can smell it. So long as I'm aware of it and I know it's there, I know it's got to be used. So normally I would buy the thighs and the breasts, and I do various different things with them. I like to, as I said, I marinate and grill the thighs and then I portion them out. With the breast I tend to smoke it, so I will put I can fit 4 trays in my smoker, and I will do 4 trays worth of chicken in the smoker, which is up to about 8 kilos, 8 or 10 kilos depending on the size of the breasts. I will put a dry rub on them and stick them in the smoker, and they will smoke for however long it takes to get into the internal temperature, and then they go in the fridge, and then you've got a couple of days of them to be eaten straight out of the fridge, and then by the end of that couple of days I slice them up and I freeze them like the thighs. So then they're portioned again to 300 and 600 gram lots into the freezer, and then whenever you want them you can pull them out and you can quick defrost them in a bit of hot water if you need them in a hurry, or I stick them in the fridge if I've planned a meal. Because they're in small portions, they're easier to defrost, which makes it easy to pull them out if you're not real sure what you're going to do. I also can chicken. So I just put chicken breasts in chunks in jars and then can them, and I have what you end up with is basically like shredded, it's a bit like shredded rotisserie chicken up in jars, and you can just dump it straight in a pan, warm it up, mix, or eat it cold with a bit of mayo for like a, I think in the American term is chicken salad, I'm not entirely sure, but basically shredded chicken and mayo and whatever else you want with it, and you can use it on sandwiches or whatever else. You can eat it cold from the jar or you can heat it up, it's personal preference. This month with the thighs it's a little bit different. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to use them yet, because they're going to have to be defrosted, they're going to have to be deboned and the skin taken off depending on what I'm using for. Nom Nom Paleo has a recipe for crackling chicken thighs which has the skin on, and it's really good, and we haven't made that for ages because skin on chicken thighs are more expensive than skin off chicken thighs at the moment. So getting this box has been great, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to use it. I also normally buy some whole chickens, and we smoke the whole chickens. We take the chicken meat off and we use it in soups or freeze it or however, sandwiches, whatever it is. And then I use the carcasses for stock, and I can the stock, and I use the bones and the vegetables that I use in the stock, we puree up for dog food. So that helps with budget there for dog food as well, because the carcasses mean you use a lot less dry food. Having these bone-in thighs will allow me to use the bones from those in the stock as well. We haven't been able to get any cheap whole chickens lately, and I I really only buy them when they're under about $3 a kilo for a whole chicken, because there's just not enough meat on them to make it worthwhile for us. You can eat a whole chicken, sometimes 2 in a meal, when you're eating it as roast. So roasts don't go very far when you've got 8 people. So this month will be a bit different, but that's generally what I do. So so it comes back to the planning of when things are going to need to be used by. Mince is first, chicken's next. The other main meat that we purchase is the pork legs. Now the pork legs are vacuum sealed and they have long dates on them, generally speaking. I noticed that one of the porks that I bought this month, obviously the packaging has been pierced, so it will have to be used quickly, and I'm aware of that, so it's noted that I have to use one of those porks at least fairly quickly. So we do a myriad of things with those porks. They are only $6.99 a kilo, which is a really good price for meat, for a versatile meat. So I bought 3 this month. So part of the plans there for those 3 porks are sausages. So I make my own sausages. I take the rind off the pork, and if you've been following me for a while, you've seen on my Instagram and that we regularly do the pork rind over potatoes, cooked in the oven, and then we keep the lard for cooking with afterwards. The pork rinds are a snack, and those potatoes are used with dinner for that evening. So I take all the rind off and I do that, and then I use the meat to make sausages, and I make a few different flavors. I'll put a link in the cards for the video that I've got of making sausages from start to finish. So we make sausages every couple of months, and again, it's a portion control thing. We know approximately how many sausages need to be defrosted for each meal, for whether it's for the kids or for Darryl and I, and we do so accordingly. And then that makes that meat stretch that little bit further. If we don't put it in sausage casings, we do use the mince for other things as well. Interrupted again. Where was I? Alright, so if the mince isn't used for sausages, we use it for other things. We really like sausage potato soup, like the zuppa toscana type soup, and we can that, so we can use the sausage meat in the jars with the potatoes and the lemon juice, coconut cream, whatever. We make the soup in the jars, and then we add the fresh silver beet or kale, and that when we serve it. So we do use the mince for that. I made steamed pork buns last month with some of the mince as well. I turned the mince into a bit of a hoisin style minced meat, and we used it inside pork buns. What else did we do? We pull it, smoke it and pull it. So we just smoke it and then pull it into pulled pork for use on pizzas or in wraps or anything like that as well. The other thing we do is we do a mustard coating and then a dry rub on it, and we smoke it to slice as cold meat. So there's so many things that we can use that for, and the ones that are vacuum sealed have quite a lengthy date on them, so we can use them later on in the month as well, which is great. Sausages are a good stretching meal though, and go to the effort of marinating and mincing and filling the sausages, and it can provide us with sausages for a couple of months because again it's portioned into smaller pieces. If I cook a roast pork that you slice, we can go through a whole roast in a meal because your meat is your main part of the meal. But if we're making something like sausages, then it's generally served with a whole lot of potato and vegetables and gravy and things like that, and it stretches further. So again, portion control is a big thing there. The other thing I regularly buy is some sort of a beef roast to do something with. So lately we've been on a pastrami kick. So we've been buying corned beef, and then I soak it and rub it and smoke it, and it ends up being a sliceable pastrami, which is really nice. Elise, one of the viewers, has sent me some of her cure to make my own corned beef. So what I've done is I've bought a fresh Silverside this month so that I can corn my own and see how I go at making it from scratch, which will be really nice. If it's cheap, we tend to buy a topside or something to make jerky with, but we're having problems with power at the moment and running our dehydrator, so we haven't been doing that lately. And it's just not cost effective. Sometimes I have to have enough surplus to be able to do that, because jerky doesn't become a meal, it becomes a snack. And a very easily eaten snack as well. So we try not to do it too often because it's just eaten too easily. The other thing is I've been buying pork belly lately because I've been making my own bacon, but also sometimes we cook the pork belly to use as pork belly as well. We really enjoy it. It's only $14.99 a kilo at Costco, so it's not overly expensive for a meat. It just becomes one of those gourmet style meals. It's something that's planned and enjoyed and savoured for that purpose. We do buy bacon as well. The Coles and Woolworths generally have economy bacon for about $10 a kilo. This month the butcher had it for $5, so I grabbed some from there. The economy bacon isn't necessarily well shaped. It's quite often lots of offcuts and things like that, but it doesn't matter, it still tastes the same. I don't think any other meat is really something that we purchase very often. Occasionally we'll have some lamb, occasionally we'll have some ribs, things like that. But we like the stuff that I can portion out. I like to be able to make the food stretch. So that's how we handle the meat situation.